so much for the warm welcome, and hello everybody. Feel free to use the chat and chat amongst yourselves if you're online. Thank you so much for the organisers for inviting me today. So I am Melissa Fisher. You can find me on LinkedIn. So I'm Melissa Jane Fisher. So feel free to connect with me. I really enjoy just conversations about quality and testing. So feel free to reach out to me and chat about things. So yeah, today I'm doing a talk called Quality Engineering from Chaos to Order. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about me, because a lot of this talk is going to be based on my experience, my thoughts and ideas. And I think it's a good for you to all understand where I'm coming from. So I'm currently a quality engineering lead at Vitrify, where I'm heading up the quality engineering function there. I basically had a career in software testing. I really absolutely love it. Some of you may relate. I fell into this industry and I haven't looked back since. I've done a lot of hands-on testing, a lot of holistic testing. And what I mean by that is I haven't specialized. So I've done a bit of everything like security, performance, automation, accessibility, and so on. So that's how, with all of that experience, looking at it from a holistic, that's how I approach leadership as well, looking things from a big picture point of view and seeing how we can approach it. I absolutely love problem solving. And I think in quality and testing and just the way the tech industry is going, we need to solve problems. And a lot of that is by improving things and doing experiments. So I think experimentation is absolutely key to what we need to do in our discipline. I'm also a blogger. I try to write a lot about what I'm talking about on my blog, so do go and find it. It's fishoutthebox.medium.com. I've written over 100 blog posts on there, so please do go and check it out. It's a bit of a play on my name, so Fisher, and thinking outside the box. So I think thinking outside the box is what we need to do in our discipline. Also, I want to give a shout out to a collaborative book I wrote called Testing Stories. Well, I didn't in fact write this. It was some great software testers from around the globe that wrote this. All I did was facilitate it. So if you go to leanpub.com and look up Testing Stories, you'll be able to find that. And all the proceeds go to a mental health charity. So feel free to go and check that out. It's an absolutely brilliant book with so many stories from different people. I'm also trying to write a book, a little bit slow. I'm trying to write Quality Engineering, a pocket handbook, so that can also be found on leanpub.com. And I'm just taking the next months to kind of write that. So hopefully I can share that with you later. But what I want to talk about is, imagine that you're walking into a new project or a team and things are not going as well as they could be. So it's really at rock bottom. The credibility and the reputation of the software testing service, possibly the team, is at just an all-time low. So what I want to do is talk about, how do you move from something that is at rock bottom to, swimming up right to the top, to the surface. So I'm going to be sharing lots of ideas and experiments, and it's in hope for you to think about your ideas and your experiments that you can do within your organizations. So what do I mean by chaos? So originally, when I was thinking of the term chaos, I went back to my childhood and thought about all of the movies that I used to watch. You may know the one called Twister. Maybe you can think of another disaster film. I love a good zombie film. I like the Resident Evil films. There's other ones like Contagion and all of that other stuff. But I'm not talking about a movie here. What I'm talking about is, you're walking to a situation and maybe the team members are multitasking. They're trying to do lots of things at once and everything is very scattered. There's not very much focus. So again, that might be a result of the multitasking, or really they just don't have clear goals and direction. There's a lack of framework. And what I mean by the framework is like the environment which they're in to really exceed, for your team members to succeed. Maybe you don't have the right framework. It could be a number of things. And overall, the team, the testing team or the service has got a really poor team reputation. It's seen as maybe slowing down delivery. Like, what is the point of software testing at all? So yeah, so imagine walking into these projects. You might have walked into a project yourself. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about this. So what I advise to do if you're walking into any sort of chaotic situation is to pause. What often I find is that people can get quite reactive or just jump in and start providing solutions. What I would advise is to simply pause and think. So there's a number of ways that you can now think about pausing and gathering information. This is what you need to be doing. So let's talk a little bit about this. So I'm going to share a couple of ideas. So I've written about this on my blog about an onboarding approach. So that could be a project, that could be into a new company, whatever it may be. And I find this strategy really, really works. So the first week or couple of days, you're handshaking, meeting as many people as possible. Fundamentally, what we're trying to do is build products as a team. And this is a very human kind of thing to do, right? We're trying to work together as a group. So the more people that you can meet and understand, the better. So meet as many people as possible, get to know them. And also in those one-to-ones, ask them, what do they think the problems are? What do you think quality engineering can provide? So yeah, so that's the first week. And then the second week, what I'd advise is just basically shove as much information as you can about the product or the project, whatever that may be. This is all about information, right? You're getting to know the people, you're getting to know the product, and maybe also the project. So whatever that may be. So what I did is I gathered all the information from, speaking to so many stakeholders. It must have been 10 plus people and understanding what their viewpoints. And then I did something called a quality engineering assessment. So this is based on two different things that I looked at, something called the test maturity model. I'm happy to share the link with that to you after this. And also there's a quality of practice assessment model by Janet Gregory and Selena. They've both got a really good book around this. And what I did is I took all of the different kind of areas, so things like QE strategy, continuous testing, test planning, and then I basically marked it out as 0 to 4. So 0 would be absolutely nothing. 4 would be, yeah, we're there, we're completely optimized in that area. And what this started to do is it started to notice gaps. So I was able to see, for example, oh, we don't have a testing peer review process, or we're not embedded into the teams, or things like that. So it's a really good model to kind of assess where you're at and what do you do next. This is so important to then do this assessment so then you can provide practical solutions going forward. So yeah, the once you've got the information, it's all about finding practical solutions to the problems. So you need to discover what are the problems. There was a podcast that I listened to a number of years ago, and this gentleman had to walk into an organization and fix a bit of a mess. So he walked into his boss's office and said to his boss, "What do you want me to do?" And the answer that he gave was to do what makes sense. And he did that. He did what makes sense. He worked through things logically and solved the problems and improved the organizational performance. That has really stuck with me ever since. Just do what makes sense in the moment. So thinking about logical reasoning, what is the easiest solution to the problem. So yeah, we're doing thinking about, we've got a problem, we're doing some thinking about it, and then thinking of the solutions. What I would advise also is to think about dealing with one or two problems at a time. I've walked into situations in the past where I've tried to do too much and I've burnt out really badly. So it's really to do this at a pace and thinking about this is kind of a marathon and not a sprint. You need to do this gradually and make those tiny steps of continuous improvement going forward. So what do you do? So, for example, I've walked into a team, the team is at an all-time low, the credibility and reputation is poor. So what I did in the first place is had a conversation with the team. And it's really difficult to have these conversations. So I had to have a conversation to say that things are not, working right now, and we need to make some improvements. What I found is being so candid and honest, I got a really good feedback from the team. And they were like, right, yeah, we understand that. And we're happy to, work with you towards, these new goals. So I think there's something here with being really candid and honest about problems to help people succeed. So yeah, that team conversation I found difficult, but my learning is people are open to candid conversation. So do have those. And something that I did in terms of moving forward, drawing a sand in the lines and walking forward, is I literally just changed the name of the team. It might seem such a simple thing to do, but it's so powerful. So originally the team was called Quality Assurance, but I rebranded it to Quality Engineering to really show that what we did before is not how we're continuing. And we've got a different path forward. So I think takeaway from that is the wording and the meaning behind things are just so important. So think about the language that you're using. So the next thing I want to talk about is something called fix the environment, not the people. I've often heard that everything is a people problem, but I don't really agree with that at all. Sometimes I feel that people's behaviors are down to the environment that they're working in. People are very quick to look at people, say, oh, it's their skill set problem and so on. But actually, quite often it's the environment. So if I can give an example, imagine that you're getting feedback, the team are asking too many questions, they're slowing down development. And actually looking at it, they're asking the right questions. The problem is that they're getting the information too late. They're not getting the information the same time as the product and engineers. And this is the actual root cause of the problem. So the team were kind of siloed, they were not embedded into the teams. So yeah, the simple fix was embed the testers into the team. And it's absolutely drastically reduced the friction between the team members. It's just amazing how simple this strategy is with people getting the same information at the same time, how much it makes a huge difference. So yeah, that's just one simple thing to do. And then also, there's another thing in terms of my team were reporting into engineering managers. Engineering managers, of course, are absolutely great. However, sometimes in these kind of messy situations, you need someone that can lead and understand the problems that are going on. So I changed the line, well, advocated for changing the line management to me. So that's what happened. And I was able to have one-to-ones with them, make strategic decisions, and all of that good stuff. And that again made a huge difference. So again, it's the environment and how things are operating in the environment and not the person. And another thing, you might have come across this or not. I've walked into a couple of different organizations where they're using Excel to track their testing, writing test cases, tracking it. It's amazing how many times I have actually seen this. And it means so many different things that it's just really hard to track the results. It's very time consuming and lots of different things. So another quick fix in the environment is to get a test management tool. So we got TestRail in this instance, and it just made a huge difference having all the testing in one place. What I find nowadays with these test management tools is that you can, for example, create your own template. So something that I advocate for is exploratory testing. So we're able to create our own template and, record our results that way to have a mix between exploratory and automation testing. So as you can see, there are three things here that have changed the environment and not the people. So I just really advocate when you're looking at problems, please look at the environment and not just the people and the skill set. So once some of those things are sorted, like how do you drive focus? So what is the kind of end road? So I often walk into organizations and they've got separate strategies for functional and non-functional testing. In my opinion, non-functional is such a broad category. It's just not useful, I think, to have a big strategy like, well, have a non-functional strategy. You need to change the approach. So what we did in this situation, as I did it in collaboration with my team, is we created a new QE strategy that combined the strategies together. And then just due to that combination, it was a single voice of what we're going to be doing next. So it had, rather than functional and non-functional, it had product quality criteria. And there would be a list that you'd go down, things like security, testability, compliance, and so on. So that radically changed the thinking already. Another thing that I've spoken a bit about in my blogs and I've done workshops on are around principles. So these are something that you feel you must do. It can help guide you within a team. These are so useful if your team are feeling a little bit lost. You can do a workshop with your team and come up with some principles. So we came up with 5. So that was risk and value, thinking about risk and what adds the most value, shifting left, being there from the start and throughout, continuous improvement. So thinking about how you make those little changes as you go forward. Thinking about automation as you go, and thinking about testability. How easy is this thing to test? It's just so important to think about that. What I found really interesting is the principles that we created were similar to some principles that was created in the previous company I worked in. So I just wonder if there are common principles that can be used in our discipline. I mean, it's just a question, really. Maybe there's other ones here for different contexts, but it's a very interesting point of view. Um, but yeah, so that's yeah, creating some focus. What do you focus on? So the QE strategy and principles. So another area that wasn't in the best state was around documentation. So, and also planning and result analysis. So what we did in this situation is we created a QE plan and summary report. These can be known as test plans or test exit reports. So we've got, yeah, a template that we use every time that we walk into a project and when we leave a project. And it's just got lots of tips and tricks. I just feel there's a lot of things to think about in terms of software delivery, and having some kind of prompting your thinking really helps. So we created a couple of templates in our context. And as I mentioned before, we didn't have, we looked at quality criteria instead of functional and non-functional. In the QE summary report, I just wanted to share a couple of questions that were added in terms of thinking about your observations and learnings. So what have you learnt? What has slowed you down? And what can we do to continuously improve? Sometimes I see in test result analysis things like test fail rates, number of test cases, and so on. But we have to remember the human element in terms of the thinking. So yeah, these are really important, especially for me as a manager. Like, what has slowed them down? What can we do to improve things? Is it around testability? Is it around something else? So yeah, I really recommend asking your team these questions, or even asking yourself these questions in projects. So another area that may be important is the quality of work. So this goes for anything anyone is produces. I really recommend getting it peer reviewed. So we didn't have a peer review process in our context. So what we did is one of the team members actually facilitated the conversation. So we implemented a peer review process. It was really easy. Once you've written a QE plan, QE summary report, or maybe designed some tests, you would share that with somebody else. And then another person would give you some constructive feedback. It's amazing what a peer review process can do. It can improve teamwork and collaboration, and overall the work quality becomes better. So yeah, I just really recommend peer review, even for anyone on the team, regardless of seniority. It's really important that you do your peer reviews. So another one, just that I briefly want to mention, like as a lead or manager, is yeah, the coaching and mentoring side. This is really important to help, the people really succeed in environment. So of course, there's those one-to-ones on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, but it's really to encourage learning. And you don't have to do this on your own. You can create an environment that is around continuous learning. So you can share blogs, learnings, courses. I mean, I shared some information today that I learned from the previous talk with my team. So these are simple things that you can do to help people kind of upskill, learn new things. So it's just really important to have that culture of sharing and learning. So yeah, I've got about 20, it's about 20 minutes. I just slowly start to wrap up and then there's plenty of time for questions. So I want to talk about like in these situations of leading out of chaos. I mean, it's been, I've succeeded and it's been brilliant. But there's also a lot of learnings that I've taken away from it. That yes, you're trying to support your team members, but focus is also for yourself. Sometimes I try to take on too many problems and do too many things and put myself last. So I think focus is really important for you as a person, like leading through kind of this chaotic situation. What I've started to do, just as an experiment, is put thinking time in the calendar. So rather than running from meeting to meeting, I actually have time to think. So a lot of the work that we do might be around just thinking. It's a cognitive process, right? And how you approach different things. So yeah, I started to doing that, see how the experiment goes. Hopefully it's a success. Um, Also, what's so important is that you do this with the team, not just coming in, being autocratic and leading. It's like we're going to do this together. As I mentioned, I had a conversation with the team, and it's like we need to do this together, a flat structure, and we need to work through these problems. So that is just so fundamentally important. Um, there have been times where I've really doubted myself. Like, can I actually keep doing this? Can I do this? And in moments of doubt, I've got something actually on my wall. It's just to remember I'm going to figure it out like I always have. So there are solutions, and yeah, there's a way forward. And I suppose something that's so important is that things are not going to change overnight. Change is a marathon, not a sprint. And you've got to be really, really patient with these things. So be in it for the long game, but you will see improvements as you go along. So just a couple of takeaways. So it's great to learn from what has happened, but I think you can draw a line under the sand and step forward positively. Sometimes you can focus too much on the past, but it's like, what are you going to do next? So I think that's really fundamentally important just to think about what is next. Um, I mentioned fix the environment so people can thrive. I fundamentally believe this. Don't look at people first, look at the environment. Um, and knowing where you're headed is so important for focus for you and the team. Like, what are you striving towards? So, things like a QE strategy. Also, we did goals and things like that. So, it just depends what helps you. Um, Peer reviews are an absolute must, whatever you're doing, even if it might be a conference talk or something like that. Just get a peer review from someone else. They'll be able to help you. And just the last thing really is to think about testing as more than just pass fail rates and number of tests. Share your observations. What are you learning? Is it creating a product that the customers actually want? And all those good questions. So yeah, just that's kind of the end of my talk, kind of moving on to Q&A. But thank you so much for listening to me today. I really, really appreciate it.